Hey, what's up internet? For today's video, I am going to be showing you the camera that I've been using in my videos for at least the past 6 months or so. What I have over here is the Drift Ghost S, and in short, it's actually a pretty phenomenal camera in my point of view. As far as video quality is concerned, it is a huge step up from the Contour 2 Plus that I used to use. As you know, the Contour 2 Plus didn't really give me a very good video quality, and it also does improve a bit on several other factors as I go through this camera. So before I talk about specifications of the camera and critique on this particular camera, I'll show you what buying the entire set is gonna come with. So of course, right in front of you, you have the camera itself, the Drift Ghost S. It comes with one curved mount. It also comes with a flat mount. Over here you see this is the original rear cover that comes with the camera. The other cover that comes is the one that has an open micro USB port and your microphone jack at the back. The quick guide, and over here you have the remote control that I'm going to talk about later. Of course, the charging and docking cable for your camera, as well as a little strap that you can use to hold down the remote control and tie it to your wrist or to your handlebar if you are using it there. So the camera, I would say first of all, the camera is open at the back by this really annoying screwed backing that I do not like. Before, with the Contour Plus 2, you were able to push it up and it just pops right open very fast. But with this is going to be a huge problem, which I'll address later. Over here, you're at the back, the battery, HDMI, micro USB, microphone port. Okay, so we put that aside. You turn this on, 3 seconds, and it turns on, and it has a nice screen that you can set how long before it shuts off. Mine shuts off after a few seconds. Pressing this, which is the menu button, or the on off button, will turn on the screen for you to set the settings. Pressing the menu, you have over here the settings for video, still image, time lapse, and of course the burst. So heading back over here, this is the playback menu for the videos that you take. Over here is the settings for the individual modes, and of course over here you have the general settings of the camera itself. So one thing that this camera has is of course the ability to connect to Wi-Fi, so that you can use this remote control as well as connect to your phone. There's a mix sensitivity, speaker volume, you know, the usual standard stuff that you get in any action cam. So I will not talk about it. I will instead focus on the settings of the camera itself. As you can see over here, you have the ability to go from WVGA all the way to 1080p. There's no 4K, unlike the GoPro, which is gonna be a drawback for this. But nonetheless, if all you're going to take is a 1080p video, 1080p video is just as good as the GoPro itself. Now the only problem with the 1080p view is that, of course, you can't take it in 120 fps, whereas if you were to take it in 720p, you can. But the 720p option does not give you better control of the field of view, but that's pretty much an issue related to the fact that it's 720p and thus less pixels to give you that leeway. So I will leave a couple of links at the side over here where you can watch the video quality of the individual settings that I have: 1080p 60, 720p 60 fps, and lastly 480p at 30 fps, as well as a shot at night. So if you have looked at the videos that I provided, the Drift Ghost S does have extremely good video quality. I would say that if you were to compare it to the GoPro, the video quality of the Drift Ghost S itself is just as good at 1080p 60 fps. The battery life is tremendous. At 1080p 60 fps, you can expect the battery to last you approximately 3 hours of recording time, whereas if you were using a GoPro at 1080p 60 fps, you would be pretty amazed that you could get 1.5 hours of recording time. So definitely battery life is a good thing about the Drift Ghost S. Now, remember when I said that this particular form of sealing the back of the camera, well, it does a good job of making sure that the camera itself is pretty rain resistant. That means if you were to bring yourself and apply in the rain, it should not damage the camera in any significant way. Although if you want to do it underwater, you want to do underwater shots, you're going to need to buy a separate case provided by Drift to do that kind of thing. But nonetheless, this kind of case, this kind of backing does protect for rain where it concerns. But the only problem is, due to this way of sealing the back of the camera, it is extremely tedious to take it out and put it back on. And the reason why you want to be able to put on and take out the back is because once in a while you will turn on the camera and record, and then you will see that the red light, the recording light, okay, let me show you how it records. So you press, after you turn it on, you press and it should record a video. So sometimes you will notice that this red light, instead of continuing to flash to indicate that it's recording, it stays red, and that means the entire camera has hung. Okay, and when the camera has hung, basically you really do need to pop out the battery for probably a second or so and pop it back in before you can run the camera again. And for the Drift Ghost S, this sort of occurrence happens quite often. I usually have to do this every once a week or so, and it seems that it is related to an issue with the formatting of the SD card itself. Basically, if you see that this problem occurs often, you are going to need to take this SD card, just leave it in, plug it into your computer, and reformat it from the PC itself. and that should remove the issue for maybe a month or so before it starts cropping up again. But you know, this is not an uncommon thing. It happens with the GoPro, it happens with the Contour. The only issue is that with the Drift Ghost S, you do not know that it's gonna happen until it's too late. Pretty much, you could start a day, click on the record button, ride the whole way without knowing that it had failed at the start of the ride, and then end the ride with no footage at all. And that's because uh, when you start recording, you hear that beep, and it doesn't signify whether it's hung or it's fine. You really have to just look in the mirror once in a while to ensure that the light is blinking red. Whereas if I had been using my Contour Plus 2 is probably the most reliable camera. It rarely encounters this hanging issue, and at the very least, if it does hang, it lets you know right off the bat, because when you hit the record button, it will not beep on the Contour Plus 2 if it's hung and requires a reseating of the battery, whereas this one does. So uh, you know this is something you have to keep in mind when using the Drift Ghost. Honestly speaking, I prefer using the Drift Ghost as a vlogging camera, but if I were expecting to use it as sort of a you know camera for capturing accidents for legal issues, this might not be so reliable. Now over here you have the remote. The remote is pretty much simple. This one does the recording starts up, and if I remember correctly, this one is for the syncing. So it's pretty simple. I don't use the remote much, but if you for example, are gonna be putting the camera on a pole mount where it's going to be far away from you, so you might want to use the remote to activate the camera where it's beyond your reach to handle the buttons over at the top. Now the Drift Ghost S is pretty much the best camera as far as helmet cams are concerned, personally, because of its slim profile that the Contour Plus 2 has and the Sony Action Cam has, but it is slightly slimmer than both, I think, in my opinion. I mean, it weighs a lot more than the Contour Plus 2 and the GoPro, of course, but it's slimmer and it fits very well to the side of your helmet with a curved mount like this one. So another thing that makes this camera really good is the mount. Okay, this mount, basically you have this on, let's say, your helmet or whatever, and then it just clips on like this, making removal and attaching it back on a very simple affair, uh, which I like because it keeps this bracket as part of the helmet, while you have this bracket mounting as another separate thing, so that you can also unscrew it. Okay, and over here at the base of the camera, okay, is a standard threading for your, let's say you've got a tripod, or uh, pretty much any standard camera like DSLR screw that can fit in here. So if you're going to mount it on a tripod, it will work on a tripod. If you're going to mount it on a gimbal, it works on a gimbal. So that's something good, and I think probably most cameras might have it, but quite a few do not have it, so this is definitely a plus. uh, okay, so the Ghost S also has a pretty shoddy internal microphone. If you watch the previous demo clips of the camera itself, you will realize that uh, the pickup on the internal microphone is not exactly good. So uh, the Drift Ghost S just really needs to be paired together with an external microphone, a lavalier or a lapel microphone. It needs to be there uh, to pick up any reasonable sound at all. It also has a fully rotatable lens, not really fully rotatable, it's rotatable, I think probably 180 degrees, yes, 180 degrees here, and about almost 180 degrees pretty much. So there's a certain amount of coverage that it does afford. If you're gonna lay it flat this way, or you're gonna lay it on this way, or pretty much anyhow, just like the Quanta Plus 2, which is another plus for the Drift Ghost S. So if any questions, you can please leave them in the comment section below, or if you want to do so on social media, you can leave it on Facebook, and I will answer you as best as I can about this camera, or pretty much anything that you want answered. Or you can probably click here to subscribe if you want to see more of my motovlogs, more of my reviews, and I'll see you next time. Peace out, guys.